to copy, transform, and combine existing materials to produce something new. Remixing is everywhere you look. When you take something old and use it in something new, that's remixing. Remixing allows us to make music without playing instruments, to create software without coding, to create bigger and more complex ideas out of smaller and simpler ideas. You don't need expensive tools to remix, you don't need a distributor, you don't even need skills or good judgment. Everybody can remix, and everybody does. From our songs and movies and memes, to the technologies that transform our lives, to the way we make sense of reality, to the evolution of life itself, everything is definitely a remix.
All right, everyone, I just got off a Zoom call with Kirby Ferguson, who is the creator of a lot of great work, including Everything is a Remix. There are 4 installments of that documentary discussing the idea of remix theory, that everything in our world is based on ideas that existed before. He's also the creator of This Is Not a Conspiracy Theory. I've put links in the description below in YouTube and also in whichever podcast platform you might be viewing on, so that you can check out Kirby Ferguson's work. It is well worth a watch. It is really interesting. His insights, the complex ideas that he shares in a really interesting and often humorous way. He is a really great storyteller, and his sense of humor, his intelligence, his insight all came through in this interview that you're about to watch. I really enjoyed speaking with Kirby Ferguson, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy watching and listening to our conversation as well. And I do hope you will check out his work. You can easily find it on YouTube. He has his website, and he has a newsletter that you can subscribe to in order to keep up to date on what he's working on and what his next big project will be. Without any further delay, here's Our Mind on Music. I am speaking with Kirby Ferguson about his latest release, Artificial Creativity, Part 4 of Everything is a Remix. Recording in progress.
Are you Canadian?
I am, yeah.
Because you said progress.
Oh, I should have said progress. Right?
I learned, well, I'm Canadian, but yeah. I learned here in the US that it's progress here. And if you say progress, people are sort of like, what?
What word did you just say?
What are you talking about? Yeah.
That's hilarious. Where are you from in Canada?
Prince Edward Island.
Nice. PEI.
Yeah, that's where I grew up. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I went there with my family a couple of years ago. Just amazing. I really loved it.
Gorgeous. Beautiful place. But I lived in Toronto for a long time.
Okay. And you're in Portland right now?
No, I'm in San Diego. I'm in California now.
All right.
Yeah, I was in Portland, and now I'm in Southern California. I'm a long way from home.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So, first of all, congratulations on the work that you have been doing. It's like amazing. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much, dude. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really. I guess I first became aware of you when you did your TED Talk a while ago.
Oh wow.
Creativity.
That was 11 years ago now, almost.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been aware of your work since then. And when I was researching a little bit for this chat, I saw the year and I was like, what? Holy, where did that time?
Yeah, man. Totally. Yeah. It was a long time ago now. Yeah.
I'm a music teacher. And I used to teach in Kazakhstan for a while, a couple of years. And we used to do Monday morning assemblies with the kids, and we would show TED Talks, or at least segments of them. And one of them was yours.
Oh, cool. That's so cool that it reached there. It's always mind blowing. Like for those of us who grew up before the internet, who knew a world without the internet, it's always just so awesome to hear about your stuff getting played halfway around the planet.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting here in Shenzhen, China right now talking to you.
Oh, are you? Okay. Well, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. So it's
I assumed you were up in Canada.
No, I don't get back to Canada until June. So
so you're teaching music in China?
Yeah, I'm in Shuko International School in Shenzhen.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow, you're much farther away from home than me.
This is true. Yeah.
Are you? What do you think of it there? How's life in China?
Oh, it's great. Actually, I came here first in 2002, and
Okay.
some breaks in between. I've been living here pretty much the whole time. So
Oh wow. Okay. Like you're that's your home now. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's great. I really enjoy it here.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
thank you. All right. I love actually one of the things I love most about what you do is your ability to tell a story that is very complex and
Hmm.
difficult to tell, and you tell it in a way that is easy to understand within like a 1 hour cut, which is
That's good. Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
And then
That's amazing.
in a fun amusing way. That's kind of what we try to do here at Our Mind on Music is approach everything that is music in a fun,
Hmm.
interesting way in sort of bite-sized chunks, you know?
Yeah, totally. That's the way to do it. That's awesome to hear that's the way you perceived it.
Yeah. So you just put out what you said is the last installment of Everything.
You say that with a twinkle in your eye. Yes.
No, I say that with hope that that the video you
Oh,
put out
okay.
right afterwards is
Uh-huh.
this is the last
But that
video, except this one.
well, but if I could just elaborate on that, the video after that was just a compilation of the
I know,
previous four.
I know. I'm being a little silly, but it was a little, yeah. It was fun.
that was the last new content.
Yeah,
The one after
that's
that
right.
was just a packaging of the previous stuff. Yeah, sorry. Well, sorry, continue.
So, just to comment on that, like that like what you just said was packaging of the previous stuff.
Yeah.
I really don't understand how you do that. How do you take this massive body of work that we've just said is at least 11 years old,
Yeah.
and turn it into 1 hour? That's amazing.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
it's fantastic. So, I guess my first question is, if that's the last new thing, number 4 is the last one for everything is a remix. What's the next thing? Do you know what Kirby Ferguson fans like myself should be expecting?
Well, I would say basically I don't entirely know. Like I've gotten in trouble in the past with like announcing a new thing and like before you totally really know what you're doing, and then sort of being sort of having this albatross around your neck and being stuck with it for years to come. So I'm not basically like I'm out of the content game in terms of for video for sure. So basically next, if people want to keep up with me, my email newsletter is the place to do it, and I'll be exploring interesting topics and continuing my journey there. So it will just be in text form, and it will be kind of a hobby. It'll be a side project. I don't want to start some big thing. I've done a few of those in a row, and I'm done with that. But I don't. So basically, the newsletter is sort of where I will work out what the next thing is. But during the day, I'll be producing videos for other people. So there will be original content coming that you will find through that newsletter. But basically I'll be making them, they'll be paid gigs that I'm doing for other people. I won't just be producing videos for free and putting them out. And that will just be based on, what people are seeking. It won't be so much about me just saying, I have a cool idea and I'm going to go make a video. It'll be, hey, could you make a video about whatever? And I'll make the video.
Yeah.
So basically it's a little bit in flux. I'll be doing professional video production. I'll be doing my newsletter as that's where you can keep up with me. I would say that's the place that you want to go if you want to keep up with me. And then sorting out what the next thing is, but it's not content. I'm done with content as far as I know. Like life is long. Like who knows about
Sure.
the
Yeah.
distant future, but for the foreseeable future, I have a son now. I'm a dad now. Like I have responsibilities that I did not have before. It's a new chapter in life, and I in a lot of ways feel sort of done with what I was doing. Like I often have some burning next thing that I want to do, and I don't this time. Like I'm ready to be done because it's
Yeah.
been brewing for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean,
I'm ready to make the move at this point.
That's fair. I mean, I have to laugh because even in our little podcast setting here, I've done that a number of times. At the end of our episodes, quite often, I'll say, "Okay, get ready for the next episode," which is the
Yep.
last one was supposed to be, "Do you still like your favorite song?" Like
That's a great topic.
uh,
It's
so.
so
But
funny, yeah, because some songs you love them intensely and then you never listen to them again. Yeah.
yeah, like life changes and time changes,
Yep.
and
Your tastes
um,
change. And yeah.
yeah. Artificial creativity. This is part
Yes.
4 of Everything is a Remix. I would love to talk to you in depth about like all the stuff that you've done, like some of your,
Okay.
this is not a conspiracy theory stuff, but it actually
Cool.
ties
Great.
together really well. Like,
It does, yeah.
so in artificial creativity, you make a lot of statements in there that I think are really insightful, but also a little controversial. There's stuff in,
Mhm.
or maybe not even a little, like for some people, it's really
Sure. Oh yeah.
down to the core stuff.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
So one of the things is when you explain about digital visual art being created by AI, by artificial intelligence, right?
Hmm.
And you explain a little bit about diffusion.
That's the for people listening, if you're like, what the hell's diffusion? It's just the voodoo, the black magic that is done to images from the internet. So the way that image generation works, which is a form of artificial intelligence that creates images, it's remixing us. It's copying zillions, just hundreds of millions, and in some cases billions of images. It analyzes them by basically diffusion, is they add noise to them and then they undo the noise, and somehow this teaches an AI to create similar images. Like how that works, I understand it on a high level, but I really don't get how it actually works, and I'm not sure that anybody really gets why it actually works. But that is the inside the black box. That is what's happening. It's called diffusion.
So I agree with you. I don't get how exactly that works. Like
Yeah, sure.
I do that. I draw a picture of a stick man and then I like scrape paint over it. And then when I remove the paint, it's still a stick man.
Yeah. It's a very different thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it did make me think about there's this quote, and I don't remember exactly who said it, but it was like there's this quote about Michelangelo, when he was asked how did he create the statue of David, and what he said was the statue was already there. All he did was remove the stone that was not David. So that made me think about a couple of ideas, which one of them is, so if you'll accept that comparison, how is this different than human creation? Like, isn't that really what we're doing anyway? I mean, your whole stance on this is copy, transform, combine, right?
Yeah.
How is what AI is doing? How do you see it as being different, or do you see it as being different from the way humans create?
Well, it certainly is similar. I mean, there's no denying that there are similarities there, and in my argument about whether it is ethical or not, I start with that. Like, there's no denying that it is similar, because the way that like our training set, your training set, is all the music that you've listened to and all the theory that you've learned and yada yada yada, and then you create new music, and that new music is created from other music. You can't you're working within the paradigm that you have learned. So the way that AIs work is they're studying a zillion images. That's called a training set, that whole giant mess of images. And then they're creating new images based on the images that they have studied. So they're similar to the other images, but they are different. So I think what's different is that, number one, it's not people. So it's machines. Unlike some people, I do not think that this software has any sort of intelligence or anything like that. I think that's a silly, ridiculous idea. So they're just machines. So like, we are comparing human beings who think and love and live and die and all of that amazing and horrible stuff. You're comparing that to just a machine, which is just, it's like it's like a transistor. Like it's of that family. It's electricity. So it's just a thing. So they are different in that humans have rights, deserve consideration, we're political, we're tribal, blah blah blah. So it does have to be navigated in that way. And also AIs can just infinitely produce stuff day and night. They can crank out They can crank out imagery, or it will be music in the near future. So they can crank it out, but they don't have awareness is a giant difference. So I think that, like, I had a little debate with one of my fans in my Discord where he thought that, like, do they have awareness? Like, is there more going on? And is that part of like how we do it? And to me, it's like, obviously awareness is part of it, because we're the only creatures that create art. There's no other life forms on this planet that create art. So we are aware, we are sentient, we know that we exist. So it seems to be part of the stew. And also, like, you can criticize yourself when you have awareness. You can look at what you've done and you can compare it to other people and you can evolve it. So there's just a lot that goes on with being aware of what you have done and knowing that other people are doing other things. AIs have none of that awareness, right? So they're not connected to anybody else. They're not social. They don't think in a way that we would consider thinking. So it's more different than alike, really. They are alike in that the question that we're going to have to answer is, do they have the right to do what we do, which is we copy, transform, and combine? Do they have, and they can do it infinitely, they can do it day and night and outcompete us in that way, and they are doing good art at this point. I wouldn't say it's human level, but it's pretty darn good. Mm-hmm. So is it okay for them to do that? I tend to think it is okay, and we are best off using what they do well, which for now is creating good artwork, but still it's missing something because there's no mind behind it. There's no argument or position or feeling or whatever in these images. They're mostly pretty pictures. So I think, we let them do that part, and we bring the essential part of us to that equation, which is having opinions and positions and trying to say something about what it is like to be alive. I think that is the way to treat it. So that's some snapshots of what I think.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I agree with you at this point that they're not aware. I do start to wonder, like, what about when they, or if they ever will become aware, like that.
Yeah. Who knows? Yes.
So that's another question, but we can't
Sure.
really say. I understand what you just said, and to go further on it, I don't think it would.
No, I mean, that's image.
So here's the question.
They can watch the video if they want my sort of like synthesized take on it.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, it goes into a lot of detail, and I love the fact, like, the amount of questions that it raised in my mind. This is the 3 pages that summarizes the questions that I had from watching it, and then of course, as I remember I was doing a wall climbing class years ago, and the instructor said, every solution that you find creates new problems.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It's the same idea. Every question.
Very true. Yeah.
I find an answer, and then it creates a new question. So here's a question.
Yes.
Everything is a remix, meaning, like, when you started the first Everything is a Remix, I was thinking in terms of music, which is where you started with Cool Herc and all that stuff.
Remix.
Yeah.
And Led Zeppelin, which I thought was really cool to think of Zeppelin as remixing.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But then I started to think, okay, so that means that everything, including our thoughts. So Ekhart Tolle,
yes.
Yeah.
I do.
Fantastic, right? And he does this great thing talking about, somebody asked him, what is original thought then? Where do our thoughts come from? So I started to think, well, if everything is a remix, then what is originality? I have some thoughts on that myself, but I'm curious what you think about that.
I think originality is, it's basically it's copying and transforming, it's copying, transforming, and combining things in a new sort of way. So in the video series, I talk about things like the printing press, which was made out of stuff that had been around for decades and centuries. So there was nothing real new going on there, but you combine them together and you've got this just indisputably new thing. Like, now we can print books. Like, before that, you had to monks had to manually write out the pages of books, right? So they were incredibly expensive. Only a select few could afford these things. So that was revolutionary. That was the internet of its day, right? The printing press. Mm-hmm. So it's bringing things together in a new way. And I think sometimes it's just iterating on something to such a degree, like you change it and change it and change it and change it until it reaches some sort of tipping point. Like, to use a musical analogy, like, I don't know who you think the first punk rock band is, but if it was Iggy Pop or the Ramones or whatever, like whoever it was, mm-hmm. what they were doing was taking 50s rock and roll. It was I think the influence was mostly 50s rock and roll, and playing it faster and playing it harder and playing it sloppier and like reducing it or whatever. Yeah. It just, like, in their bodies and in their musicality, it just shifted, and in their inability to play it properly or whatever, like just myriad forces, right. Made it feel like something else. It felt like something new and exciting, even though it was obviously, like the Ramones in particular, it's clearly linked to 50s rock and roll.
It was about reclaiming rock and roll. I saw elements of the Beach Boys there.
And yet it's just totally different. It just feels totally different. So I think when you just iterate and iterate and iterate, at some point our perception shifts and we go, oh, that's a new thing. So I think that's what originality is, and new things are. It's just changing something over and over and over, going really, really far with it until it's something different. It's combining things in new ways that have never been done before. But it's nothing's new. Like when we say new, we don't mean new in a really strict literal sort of way. It's new as in our perception, or in the case of technology, there's some sort of like genuinely new ability, like in the case of the printing press or the internet or whatever, like something new is happening. That can happen. But when it comes to things like art and creation and ideas, it's more like, okay, this feels like a new thing. This feels like a new idea or a new experience or whatever. So that's what I think originality is to me. And I do think it's worth, like some people, maybe I should have made it clear in the series this time, but like, I think some people think that I underestimate how important it is. But I think it's really important. Like, I do think it is vital for people to do their own thing and don't be imitative. Like, for instance, if we just circle back to image generation for a second, like I saw somebody describing when you use an actual artist's name, like say Andy Warhol, whatever, Andy Warhol, Bart Simpson or whatever, like when you're just combining names together, he thought of that as being cringy. And like, I'm totally with him. Like that's cringy. Like, don't be imitative of other people's Bart stuff. Warhol. That's actually kind of funny. I would say that, like, if that's your screen name, that might be pretty good. But like, it is lame to be imitative of other people. I think you should try to find your own thing. But at the same time, I think there's this big middle ground where, like, you kind of sound like other stuff, you kind of look like other stuff or whatever, and that's okay. That's totally fine. But you got to push it a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you made the music comparison for obvious reasons, being a musician myself.
Yes, that was for you. That was for the room.
Thank you. Reading the room.
I read that little room.
But I mean, actually, it makes me think of a quote that I heard from Geddy Lee. He was asked what's originality, and his answer was, originality is when you have so many influences mixed together, you can't actually, they meld together, you can't differentiate.
Yeah. Yes.
And then he goes the extra step. I think what I'm saying right now, I think is agreeing with what you just said, because he said, once you have all of that melded together, that in itself is not originality. What happens is, as you get better at your craft, as you get more confident in your craft, then your skill steps in front of that influence, right? Which is all sort of built on top, or maybe you're standing on top of it, and that becomes your voice.
Yes.
That's what becomes.
That's well put. Yeah. I mean, I think, like, part of it is just putting your own personality, which is unique. You know, we all have unique personalities, even if you think you're really, for anybody listening or watching who thinks that like you're just very average, like you're not. We're all quirky and distinct. So yeah, just putting your own spin on things is a big deal as well, right? Like just employing your own idiosyncrasies.
So would you say that, because like perception is reality, that I mean, I know it's a cliche and everything, but if I perceive what I'm doing as original and strong, like, can I just run with that? Like, my daughter is 15 and she loves K-pop right now, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm actually going to interview her for one of our episodes just to talk about that, because I find it really interesting.
That's fun. Uh-huh.
I listen to a lot of the K-pop stuff, and it reminds me of like 80s pop mixed with maybe a little bit of 90s look, you know.
Yes.
So
it's very derivative.
Yeah. So
to me it seems very derivative.
Okay, but then there is stuff that comes from it. Like, I have always said to my students that pop music is not really a genre, because it's actually just a number of record sales. Pop means popular. That's all it means.
Yes. Correct.
But actually, K-pop has made me question that stance a little bit, because with pop music, like Green Day was pop music at the same time that Madonna was pop music. So what are the similarities? That they both sold over 1 million copies, right? Whereas K-pop seems to have its own combination of elements that make it pop, which is making me question what pop music is, which to me means it's not derivative. It means that from this copy, transform, combine, they're actually creating something that I think is new.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm not an expert on K-pop at all, but like the stuff that I've heard, it seems quite derivative of, to me it feels like 90s pop. To me it feels like boy bands. But the overall media experience of it, I would say, does feel unique. I would like, it seems more creative with the visuals. That seems more new to me. The way it looks seems more new than the actual music. So as a whole, and then the fan experience and everything, I'm sure is very singular and unique. So it's different in that way. But to me, it sounds it's quite conservative music, right? Like, it's a conservative culture. It's conservative music. It's classic. Like, they're doing the established thing, and they're evolving it modestly, but it's a very classic sort of sound, right? To me, that's what pop, that's what K-pop seems like to me. It seems like a very classic sort of conservative brand of pop music that has a pretty imaginative presentation, I would say.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Actually. Again, I'm not a freaking expert in K-pop. I actually thought I might have K-pop in the new series, but I ended up not doing it.
Okay, so that's another glimmer of hope for me. There might be a 5.
Is that brewing? Is that brewing somewhere in there? I don't know.
I'm just planting a seed. I'm just planting a seed.
Yes, they're so innocent. Yes,
that's awesome. Okay. I'm pretty sure I was going to go somewhere with that, other than just to say that, you know, sometimes things that to me might, to you might seem derivative or like really.
Oh well, I think I can put a lid on that by saying that, like, if you don't know the history of something, then it's original to you, right? Like, if you don't know where it came from, if you've not heard 90s boy bands, then K-pop would seem totally new and novel to you, which, you know, for a lot of these girls listening, they probably have not, or they're not very familiar with that music. So if you don't know, somebody has a quote, I forget who it is, but it's something along the lines of originality is not knowing the history of something, or something to that effect. That's definitely true.
That's exactly that. I mean, that sums up really well, I guess. Where I was going with that is just that, like, for her, she was getting a little offended when I was saying, oh, this sounds like this thing. And in fact, my Leon and I, the co-host of the show, He and I were
Yeah.
talking about that, where sometimes we write a song and we think, oh, this is so good. Take it to the band or take it to friends, and they say, oh, that sounds just like such and such.
Yeah.
One of the example that I used recently was I wrote a song and somebody said, oh, that just sounds exactly like this song by Van Morrison.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in
What
a way,
song?
sorry?
What song? What Van Morrison song?
Yeah, that's what he asked me. I don't remember which song it was, to be honest. It was
Okay.
it was a while ago. Now I
Okay.
have to figure out which song it was because he asked me the same question. I love Van Morrison. Like, for me, that should be a
Sure.
compliment.
Yeah.
But it
Yes.
felt like a fail because I wasn't
I
trying
know. Yeah.
to write a song, a Van Morrison song. I was trying to write a Jeremy song,
Right.
so it felt like a
Sure.
fail.
Yeah. I mean, is that the, should I respond to that?
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think that it's a kind of valid response, like I on one hand, I feel like we should be more resilient about, like, yeah, of course your song sounds like somebody else's song. Like, do you think you're going to just make a new song where people like it? It would be something totally bizarre if you can easily be original if you just make something incredibly strange, right? Like, you can always be original if you want to be super experimental. But part of the game is playing with things that we know, with sounds that we know, right? Like that's what I talk about in the series. Like, that's what movie genres are. We like to see something that is like what we know, but it's different and it's new, and it takes twists and turns, and that's the game that we play. You're playing with people's expectations. That's what you're doing with a song. You're playing with people's expectations as well. That's part of the storytelling of writing songs. So I think, like on one hand, like, of course you've got to sound like other songs, like that's inevitable. But at the same time, there is this tipping point where it's like, okay, it sounds too much like whatever. Yeah, you sound too much like Led Zeppelin. Like, there's this commercial on television right now. You haven't seen it because you're in China, but I forget what it's like, a Ford. It's some sort of Jeep commercial, or I don't know what it is. It's some sort of like outdoorsy, manly commercial, and it's got just the most flagrant Zeppelin ripoff I've ever heard in my life. It is so completely flagrant. It just feels so cringy and lame to me.
They went, Zeppelin, would you let us use Whole Lotta Love for our commercial?
Yeah.
No. Okay. So
no. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna
something?
Yeah. Yes. Here, knock that off right now.
It was
so there is this middle ground of like where somebody's going to think it sounds too much like something else. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I would say that, like, if it's got its own feel and if you put your own spin on it, then run with it. So what if it sounds like Into the Mystic, right?
What
also,
I did with
who else
that
is going to
song,
think that? Like, who else is going to think that, right? Like, maybe it's just that person that thought that, right? Too, because lots of people send me emails saying, like, this sounds like whatever, and I listen to it, like, man, I don't hear any. I mean, I'm not a musician, but they don't sound anything alike to me. If you send it to me, Jeremy, I'll give you the final word on it. I will say yes or no, and then
yes or no.
So
I have decreed that it does not sound.
Yes. I'll just say no, just to make you feel better.
Okay, so I think this is my first ever Jeremy from the Future video. I have done Jeremy from the Future before because we've had to correct something that we said. In this case, it's not a correction, but I was not able to play a sample of my song for Kirby Ferguson. So Kirby, I'm going to play a sample of Into the Mystic by Van Morrison, which my song was compared to when it was written. My song is called Some Love. I'm going to play the original version that I showed to my band, and they said, that's Into the Mystic by Van Morrison. I don't think so. I don't agree. But I did redo the song, so I'll play the original Some Love side by side with Into the Mystic, and then after that, I'll play my sort of a cappella version, and you guys decide. Let me know. I hope you will leave a comment. Let me know. Do you think my song sounds like Into the Mystic by Van Morrison? Please be kind, because I realize it could easily be taken as an insult to Van Morrison. great songwriter. If you heard this without all of this extra information, would you think this is someone trying to sound like Van Morrison? I'd love to hear from you guys. Please do drop us a comment. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. That would really help us. So thank you very much. Here we go. Into the Mystic by Van Morrison. Some Love by Jeremy Van.
We were born before the wind, also younger than the sun. Yeah, the bonnie boat was one as we sail into the mystic.
Some love, you hardly feel it when it goes. Some love leaves a permanent home. Your love, feeling down the road, gonna take a long time. I don't mind. Do some love, you never feel it when it goes. Do some love, leaves a permanent home. Our love, I feel it in my soul. It's been a long time, and I don't mind.
Yeah, I mean that's I like the Beatles were really like John Lennon. I saw some quote of him speaking about how he never wanted to sound like anybody else, right? And he talked about like if something felt like too much like somebody else, you just fiddle with it a bit and like, you know, move notes around and change the rhythm a little bit and like just fiddle until like you've lost. So basically you're covering your tracks at that point, right? Like it came from this song, but I'm like gonna like yeah.
We've talked about Paul McCartney in the same way. Like, you know, Blackbird, for example, was based, he said himself, was based on a piece by Bach.
There was one little thing we used to do, which was a sort of semi-classical thing. It was like a little show-off piece we had. Well, it was actually classical, but we made it semi. We didn't quite know it, you know, but it was a thing by Bach, and it went like this. And so it actually goes. But we didn't know that second half. And that was a bit we went wrong. But I always liked this little. So years later, I then adapted it into the song Blackbird. Taking that sort of thing, you know.
But I can't remember which one. It's something by Bach.
Oh, that's interesting.
And he says, you know, but they changed it enough so that you and I it seems like you were surprised by that. I was definitely surprised by that. I thought
I'd never heard that comparison. Yeah.
And I thought, well, there's a great example. He's changed it enough so that until he said that, it's like Dave Grohl talking about how he came up with the drums for the first Nirvana album that he was on, and it's copies of disco music.
Yes.
You know, and I thought, because, you know, you see Pharrell Williams going, you know, and that's how I felt.
Yeah.
If you listen to Nevermind, the Nirvana record, I pulled so much stuff from the Gap Band and Cameo and Tony Thompson on every one of those songs. All that. That's old disco. That's all it is. Can I not hear that?
Yeah, it's really that's always so delightful when it's something where you like once you it's just connecting Nirvana to disco music just doesn't seem to make any sense.
Yeah.
And when you hear clearly that there is a connection between that two,
he does it on his legs and you go,
yeah. Oh yeah, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
I'm want to be respectful of your time here because I'm looking at the time, but I do have a question. I hope that you can Are you okay with answering another question?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things I'm thinking about is like when you're talking about creative, you call it creative destruction, which I guess is like disruption.
It's not my term, but yeah.
Okay. So disruption. So you said in there somewhere. Here I'll read it. You're talking about like the doomsday theories of AI. Like the Terminator and all that stuff. And you're saying wrong. It's just you're wrong. It's not gonna happen. They're not gonna take over the earth. Am I misquoting you?
No, that's correct. I think like bad things can happen with AI. I don't question that, but that they're going to be malign. I think we're seeing ourselves. I didn't say this in series, but I think we're imagining ourselves. We're imagining armies. We're imagining the sort of things that people do. But it's hard to imagine that AIs would turn malign in that particular way. I think the danger for the near future is them being incompetent. I think that's the greater danger, like them trying to optimize whatever, and then they end up starving us or whatever. I think them not understanding what they're doing is the bigger perceivable problem for the near future.
Okay, so actually you've already answered what I was going to ask, because my question was, do you think they will never do that, take over the world kind of thing, or is it so far? But I think you just answered.
It's so far. I mean, I feel like if something is more than 50 years away or whatever, then I'm not going to concern myself thinking about it, unless it's, there's weeds that I can get into. Like climate change, I would say is an issue, but that's because it's physical, like the temperature is going up and we need to do something about it. This is more like, will it happen or won't it happen? Like, who the hell knows? So I would say that it's distant enough that we should not be concerned about it. Is it in our lifetimes? I tend to think it's not in our lifetimes if it's possible.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That clarifies the question. I had it like written out this big like long
right.
And it didn't like blip. All right. Well,
I'm out of time pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. So we got cut off at the end of our call there. I was just saying thank you to Kirby Ferguson for taking the time to chat with me. Kirby Ferguson, the creator of Everything is a Remix, the creator of This Is Not a Conspiracy Theory, lots of different projects that he's done over the years. So I'm really curious to see where that's going to take him and his career. Super interesting thinker. Some of you will know that Leon and I did 2 episodes early on in our Mind on Music speaking about this idea. We call it, Is Everything a Remix? Because we were remixing the name. Get it? I really hope you enjoyed listening to my conversation with Kirby Ferguson. I hope as well that you will go on YouTube and watch some of his material. It's really interesting stuff. Subscribe to his newsletter. Well worth taking a look there. And if you liked our show, please do click the like button, subscribe, so you can keep up to date on what Leon and I are doing in the future with our Mind on Music. We look forward to seeing you here again. So thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks again, Kirby Ferguson, for taking the time to chat with me. And we'll see you guys soon.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Good night.